Jess Reno is joining us shortly from Nemesis Coffee. He's the founder of Nemesis Coffee and started out here in Vancouver. He's got a cafe in Vancouver, one in North Vancouver, and a soon-to-open one in Mount Pleasant. He will be joining us momentarily. Once he requests to join here, we will have him on, and we will take your questions and talk coffee, cafes in Vancouver, everything happening in during COVID-19. I'm sure that's affecting him right now as well. So we've got him coming on right now. I think Jess is right here, coming on.
Hi, hey, Jess. Hi. Hey, Richard. How you doing, man? Nice to see you.
Good, thank you. Nice to see you so far away, not so close.
Yeah.
I've known you for about 6 years, and I met you when you had a cafe and commercial drive called Lear Fay. I believe it was with your sister 6 years ago. And then, things change, of course. This is what happens in this industry. It happens all the time. And then I think when you guys had closed, you turned into a restaurant. Your sister was involved in the restaurant. And then at one point you told me, I'm going to open a new cafe. And I had no idea what your plans were, what your ideas were. And I was like, okay, I can't wait to see your cafe. When's it going to open? And then at one point I ran into your dad and he said, yeah, it's coming. And then you opened. And I think that was like 2-3 years ago now, about that?
3. Yeah, 3. Just over. Yeah.
Okay. So since you opened, I know it seems like you fast tracked because, you always have to start small and then you think big. I think you thought big from the beginning, and now you've got number 3 on the way. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you opened Nemesis, like what led to that, and what you've done between going from Nemesis number 1 to number 2.
Yeah. So it all started kind of back in that day when I met you. I was a fresh kid out of a coffee shop job into my first opportunity of ownership. And that presented its own challenges. I think is like, when you graduate, school, and then that's one set of your life, but you're moving into your next chapter, which is completely different than what school was like. And ownership is just like a completely different mentality. It's definitely is quite taxing. And I learned a lot in that first shop, though it didn't necessarily have all the world's success. It did present a lot of opportunities of growth. And while we were in the middle of that shop, I started to realize exactly kind of the concept I would actually hope for. And thus, started, never turn my brain off, and Nemesis started to come about. So when the opportunity presented itself, I met a couple of people through that restaurant that we first had, and that helped me get like boots on ground, start to see locations, see what is even achievable for, I think at the time when we were looking, I might have been like 21 years old or something like that. So this is while we had the first restaurant. I think I opened that first shop when I was like 19. It was kind of challenging, trying to find prime location, knowing that location is so important, and yet not really having a true proof of concept at that time. As we were really pushing forward on finding that first location, the other shop was in the middle of a sale, and I couldn't really bring people to it and be like, hey, look at what we did that's currently existing and operational. That thing only lasted for about a year. So if anything, it made that find a little more difficult. And in the process, managed to link up with some really sweet people that I knew in the industry or that I loved working with in the past. And they were definitely more value aligned for what we were trying to accomplish. And we worked hard. Every little dime that we had was going towards that project. There was no outside funding or financial backing or anything whatsoever. I signed my life away, took on that lease at that first location. And luckily SFU honestly, it took, I think, a couple of years or something like that before we actually secured that space. We were negotiating for a long time and just trying to prove ourselves that, we would be worthy of doing something there. And then we locked down that location down in Gastown, or on the cusp of Gastown. And the rest was a little bit of history from there. So from there, was our first foray into food and trying to pair coffee and as people compare us quite a bit to what an Australian cafe would be more like. Um, like half of our team kicking off is Australian, so it's only natural, honestly. And we took a lot of inspiration through our travels and just trying to understand the culture of coffee and what coffee can do at a high level, at a detailed oriented level, all the things that we appreciated. And then, meeting with some of our favorite roasters around the world and realizing like, yeah, we wanted a multi-roaster shop with roasters from Scandinavia to Australia and anything in between that we really appreciate, as well as a really strong food program. And as that adapted and evolved and we kind of learned who we were presented with more opportunities to grow, but we were incredibly selective. We didn't want to rush that part of the process, but I was eager to try this thing on again as an evolved version. And that's when we, found with some help, we found that location, which is at the Polygon. And they were incredibly, that group at the Polygon Art Gallery, kudos to them. They were incredibly selective as to who they wanted. And they also saw the value of having an incredible coffee programming because, coffee is really just a great coffee shop can be an anchor for a community and community gathering. It's more casual. It's far more accessible price point wise. And thousands of people pour into a shop monthly, so if you knock it out of the park. So we were eager to try our hand on what we were dabbling on, which was more baking because we do everything in house. And then as we dialed that process a bit, we went through multiple iterations. We push and we push and we push, and we ended up securing Polygon. And then we opened up the Dope Bakehouse. So that's Nemesis Dope
We'll come back
Bakehouse.
to dope in a second.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
anybody's got any questions, feel free to write them in and we'll try to take your questions. So we're talking to Jess Reno about Nemesis Coffee. So tell me dope. People know that word dope, but you've turned it into this whole bakehouse bake journey. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think at the roots, Nemesis is definitely a little more culture so, counterculture. There you go. My dyslexia is popping up. Counterculture, so even when you see the logo of the inverted heart and you see Nemesis, the inverted heart, it represents our counterculture roots. It's a little more against the grain, but it's still love, and you don't really associate the word Nemesis with love. It's our appreciation for our community, our appreciation for subcultures, whether it be skate culture or street culture, or any of those things. These are facets or elements that, inspire us, the music that we listen to, ideas that we're challenged by. That same kind of notion led into what dope is. It's a little more tongue in cheek. I think as generations have progressed, or this current generation, we use it more as it's that's not in the form of drugs. We use it obviously in the form of something that's just friggin' awesome. But dope still has that originating factor of something that's a little more has a negative connotation, just like Nemesis. But we like to pull the power out of the word. Dope is still such a fun tongue-in-cheek word, so it felt like a great extension of the Nemesis brand. And we wanted just to make baked goods, to get people baked, but with baked goods, and it just seemed like it makes sense. Yeah.
So COVID-19, I'm sure that's affected you. I'm sure like every other restaurant in Vancouver, anywhere in Canada for that matter, it's affected everybody. So it was interesting to see that you closed down your shops, but then you only opened the North Vancouver one, and Gastown is still closed. So can you explain why you did that, as opposed to a lot of people in Vancouver, we can't get to the North Shore, we can't even go to Nemesis, what do we do? And people, I'm sure, are going crazy with this. So can you explain that rationale?
Yeah, so when COVID was just first hitting, we saw an incredible dip in our numbers. This is before anybody was it felt necessary to close. I think it was around Friday the 13th in March. And we saw a dip in sales just like most people did, beyond 50%. And it became unsustainable. We saw a greater impact on our numbers, really at our Gastown location. It seemed that people were moving away from that downtown core, back into their neighborhoods or wherever they were living. And that's kind of part of the reasoning, as even till now, if you go into that kind of corridor down Hastings Street, or into the downtown core, though there's a lot of people, there's a lot of density. It seems as though it's kind of a ghost town
Hmm.
for the most part. But you see other shops like on Commercial Drive, like Livia, or you look at Ubuntu on Fraser, or even on South Granville. Just talking to the people um, at oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the name? Anyways, yeah, there's a bunch of the neighborhood shops are thriving. So North Van, though it's not necessarily kind of in the middle of a neighborhood, it's still much closer to one than our Gastown shop is. And for those reasons, it opened first, but we're working hard to see if we can justify reopening Gastown.
So when you first opened in Vancouver, like just your downtown shop, you opened to a very busy cafe scene in Vancouver. Right? People thought another coffee shop coming into
Yeah,
Gastown, they're crazy. How can they do that? But you know what? You succeeded. And I think it's kudos to your work, your hard work there, and your whole team.
thanks,
You've
Richard.
got everybody talking about you all the time. So you managed to do that. What would you say to cafes right now? So there are a lot of restaurants I know of right now that are trying to get permits and are trying to open the doors. During COVID-19 is difficult to open a new spot, but there are people trying to do it. What would you say to them as far as opening now or sort of right after the kind of restaurants are able to reopen?
Well, I mean, trying to open right now, I think is kind of crazy. Like, are you talking about new shops or just
Yeah,
reopening their
new
stores?
shops, new shops. Like,
Yeah, it's we're one of those companies too, because we're in the middle of not only that third location, but there's another project that we have in the works that we just haven't really said much about. So it's an incredibly challenging time. I think there's a lot of uncertainty, and opening right now is definitely not the most ideal time because everything that you're trying to open up now, you've probably been working on for at least a year,
right.
and no one could have ever foreseen something like this. But regardless, you got like most people are going to try to follow through with their commitments. So I think to anybody that's trying to open up the shop, I think considerations around uh, how you really take advantage of social media and market yourself, and putting an emphasis on programming that is tapping into these delivery models or pickup models, and being creative in approaches. Like if you have to open, if you might be getting crushed by debt or rent, and you can't get deferrals or anything of that nature, then yeah, focusing on redevelopment of a menu that's more handheld and not more like seated and plated, and work on development on your social media because it's more important now than ever. This is kind of how we connect, and then giving real reason to your community as to why you need that kind of support. It's highlighting your team and the people who are actually showing up to put that work in, just so that people can have a sense of normalcy. My hat's off to everybody and power to them, but I know it's going to be incredibly difficult
So
regardless.
you've got your third location about to open in Mount Pleasant. It's a coffee roastery. Now, we just had a question from someone asking, how do you choose your coffee roasters? Now, but I understand, even before we get to that question, that you're about to change that model and become your own coffee roaster. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So just about us roasting our coffee, I think it's something that we have the skill set in for sure. It's like our team is multifaceted, and before we ever opened up a shop, we're of the industry. So we've spent, years and years collective experience. It'd be hard to tally that up, but it'd be as old as time, I swear. So there's incredible experience, and not just locally, people who are from abroad that were killing there, some of our favorite shops and roasters around the world that are working with us, as well as chefs that were from around the world before they landed with us at our company. So, in our natural evolution, it's something that we really wanted to do, and not just do to roast coffee. We really actually want to challenge some of these concepts. We really want to challenge our programming, transparency, the design, packaging, every front and touch point of that model is something that we're greatly invested in, and we're just like absolutely excited to
So,
now be doing
with
it.
your new coffee roaster, are you going to eliminate all the other coffee roasters that you have in house that you're featuring now, or are you going to keep them on at the same time as your own?
Yeah, so no, we're definitely going to. I think one thing that Nemesis prides itself on is trying to like tap into local community, but also abroad, and community comes in the form of these roasters that we featured. They've become great friends of us. As much as we feel their support, we still want to continue to support them and shine some of their coffees through. So I think you will definitely be seeing other roasters on our shelves for sure. How we go about approaching that is still to be fully determined, but you might see that approach come in collaborative lots of coffee where we buy into something and we joint brand something together and we market that, and it'll be incredibly unique. If anything, we won't be losing that touch. We'll be building upon that.
So, when can people look forward to your coffee roastery actually opening? Now, I know obviously the COVID thing is a
Yeah.
difficult situation, but I'm sure you're under construction still over there. So, just a rough idea, it's like this summer? Is that sort of the plan?
Yeah, so we're literally cutting up concrete and doing a bunch of crazy stuff on site right now. Uh, with construction taking place, there is physical distance measures and trade overlap that we have to take into consideration. It has bumped out our schedule. We were definitely targeting this summer. It's still not that far off of there. And as these measures relax, you can expect something out of us sometime definitely in 2020, it's going to be like at the tail end of summer or early fall.
So, you just kind of alluded to a new project that you have in the works. Can you kind of
Yeah.
give us a little secret idea of what's to come?
Yeah. I think just like we challenged our end on when we showed up as a like a crew and coffee, we ended up, as you said, in a heavily evolved area full of beautiful, amazing coffee shops already, the likes of Revolver and Timber Train and Birds and Beats and everybody in between. We knew that, and we also knew that we're up for that kind of challenge. We definitely appreciate everybody and there. So that was like kind of, I guess, our first challenge. And then in that process, we want to challenge food and what that could feel like or taste like in a coffee shop. So, and we've had incredible collaborations with Mark Singson or other restaurateurs in our space, and we kind of challenged that food front but made it more accessible. We evolved that concept when we opened up Polygon, and it wasn't just another copy paste Nemesis. We introduced another concept under our umbrella, which is the Dope Bakehouse. And I mean, I do encourage everybody to get out there. Our baked goods are pretty damn good, but like moving forward, now we're challenging the concept of the roastery and the you'll see when that space comes, it's really a flagship store for us. It's beautiful, even when it comes down to architecture and location and things like that. But our next concept is really where our heart and soul lies. You'll come to expect incredible like food, and our programming is getting tighter as we get older, and our understanding of it, as well as like great coffee. But leaning into even further detailed on that beverage programming, and the centerpiece of that is really going to focus around music and culture and art.
So,
So
yeah, so music. So you started this whole
yes,
thing going on in Gastown. You had all these nights, these like I don't even know. I saw this stuff on Instagram, music nights and DJs and all that kind of stuff, and you really got quite the crowd going with that. It seems in North Van you've got a little bit of different crowd going on. I don't see that happening over there. So is that music scene thing going to continue in all your outlets, or just going to stay kind of to Gastown? Is that sort of curious about that?
no, we really want to. Where is actually easiest for the DJs to show up right now is in Gastown. So we're kind of just catering to making it more accessible for them. I think a lot of the artists live in that section. They're also lugging a bunch of equipment, so that's why we haven't hosted that at Polygon just yet. But just like Polygon, we've kind of actually amplified the music experience there. We like built speakers into the walls, and there's even more in-depth selection of our records. And so even if it's not the full programming that you would get at one specific location, you'll always see kind of those roots of music across all of our locations. But more specifically, this new concept is like heavily emphasized around that. So as far as like Nemesis and its lean into culture and music and things like that, it'll be far more apparent that that's what the ideation, that concepting and everything is like at that location. You're going to see a whole bunch of cool stuff happen there.
So
Yeah.
is that actually coming into Vancouver specifically, or outside of
Yeah.
Vancouver? Into
In,
Vancouver.
in Vancouver. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll watch for that. So back to
Yeah.
Emily Carr. So you secured a
Yes.
spot that every restaurant in town wanted. So how were you able to secure that spot? I knew it was a new construction for Emily Carr University, and they were planning to open this restaurant concept there. And I guess there's some sort of process in getting it. But every time, right when I heard that you got it, all these restaurants told me I wanted to get it. How did he get it? So can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, that's good to know. I didn't. I knew that we had some tough competition on it. I think. Just for a bit of clarity, it's kind of a joint venture property between Low Tide Properties and PCI Developments, just outside of Emily Carr. So they don't really have much influence over that building. But that I think when it hit us, is actually Margaret Bowden from Colliers brought that up. She sent that over to me and on what they were trying to accomplish there, and I was absolutely fascinated. I saw some early renderings. I was blown away, and then we're like, we need to go after this. So we did. We kind of put together full packages around our brand detailing, what we would try to accomplish there, some preliminary designs, the team and the management capable of running that, as well as how to make it viable, like as a spot. The rest of that corridor is a little bit undeveloped, but it will be getting developed very soon. But there are a couple of really cool key tenants. Obviously, the University, Emily Carr. Down the road, you got MEC. Right beside us, you got kind of Samsung and a bunch of other companies. So we fought for a little while, trying to secure that. But luckily, we had Gastown to kind of serve as a bit of a proof of concept as to what we were trying to accomplish there, and it seemed to fit really well with what the developers and landlords were hoping for as well.
So your masks are really hot. You know that? You guys have created these masks for your staff to wear right now during COVID-19. And everyone in the city, except for the ones from the Vancouver Aquarium, I think you've got the coolest ones as well.
Oh, man.
Are they for sale?
Yeah, we actually have a custom order that we're working on right now. So there might be some available to the public pretty soon here.
I think it's a cool design. So back to Dope Bakehouse. Do you think that that's going to spin off eventually into its own thing where you might have other bakehouses around the city that are just that brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we're hoping that people can come to expect with Nemesis is that you'll find a lot of our familiar foundations, but us as a company, we really like to look internally and challenge ourselves. One thing we don't like to do is copy paste. So I don't think you'll ever get that same kind of Dope Bakehouse exactly as it is in North Van, but there will be an evolved version under it. And Dope is really like a sub brand that we opened up that just is going to help facilitate everything that is food and like the food extension of Nemesis. So you can expect things that aren't just the Bakehouse under Dope. There will be brunch. There will be some other things that we're working on as well.
So that's a lot for you. That's a lot to work on. Like there's a lot of projects going on from the sounds of it. Do you sleep at night?
I do. Yeah, I do. I wasn't too good at that for a while. I was pretty much an insomniac, but these days, definitely a little bit more. I need it, and we definitely encourage that a whole heck of a lot more with our team too, to find a bit more balance in their days. When to shut down. So I find that it's though there's a lot going on. We can manage through these things really well. We've always kind of been hit with adverse challenges, even when it came down to like securing that first location or doing anything. We didn't have money really, so and we didn't really have any proof of concept or any of that to really back us up. So I think we've been fighting for a long time. We're in a position now where there's a couple of those things in our corner, but because there's so much more to the infrastructure, that's where our evolution is. We're kind of looking internally and going like, okay, how do we manage the scaling and not just like spit out another one. Like, how do we actually make this better or more exciting or challenge ourselves and become more veterans of our industry in that sense? And and you know, I think I sleep at night knowing that we got really cool shit in the works, and I'm
So
excited about that.
what are you drinking personally right now, coffee wise? What's your favorite?
Oh, wow. I think just I have such a rotating selection, so I don't know if there's any one particular coffee. I drink so many through the day, it's almost absurd. But some of my favorite roasters right now, like out of Scandinavia, Denmark, is Le Cabre. I absolutely love what Le Cabre is putting out. And then locally, you know, I gotta give it up to Luna. They're a beautiful roaster. I really love what they do. So
Yeah, they do a great job. And so, and
yeah.
then what kind of like, are you drinking espresso all day long? Are you drinking a macchiato? What is your drink of choice?
Yeah, no, just I don't have an espresso setup at home. I moved into a new apartment, so I haven't been able to set that up just yet. But I'm kind of like as much as I am a fan of both, I drink brew coffee like nobody's business. So,
Okay,
yeah, so yeah, I'm making pour overs between business meetings and stuff.
so
So,
I imagine like you get if you're opening a new place and you've obviously got places around the city that you're looking to hire all the time. Are you getting flooded with application forms from people wanting to work for you, or is that something that you're like looking for when you're looking for new people?
well, pre-COVID, because now that we have an excellent team and we're just working towards trying to hire them back and make sure
Right.
that this infrastructure is fully intact and everybody's got job security in that sense. But yeah, prior to COVID, yeah, it was in a lot of applications for sure. We have this HR email and there's thousands of them in them. So, and it's not just from people locally, it's from all over the world. And that doesn't mean everybody's got the same value alignment or synergy or skill set that we're kind of trying to tap into. But there's a lot of like shining gems. So on our end, really what we're trying to do is just work on our standard operating procedures and our training procedures and how we grow that way so that we can just hire the people that we love, that we align with value wise, and then, you know, have the right team and the right material to help train the skill set, yeah, to the standard that we're hoping for.
So the last time I ran into you was like back pre-COVID. It was probably like in like January, February, and you were on your way to Dubai. So tell me a bit about that. I know
Yeah.
you were going to some sort of trade show or something. That was kind of far off to go around the world for coffee. So can you little explanation there, please?
Yeah, this whole year before all of this happened was kind of just between the expansion. It was also just trying to sorry, someone said bright man, so I'm gonna maybe adjust my angle. So yeah, it was between the expanding was just trying to scout the world for inspiration as well as just trying to tap into, you know, finding people that are outside of our city that can help inform us on how to best grow, you know. And there's, you know, I think when we look internally, there's a lot that we're doing in our city that is brilliant, but when you start to just like step outside of your comfort zone and immerse yourself in other cultures and places where you don't speak the same language, I'm incredibly surprised and shocked at how people operate and just, you know, what we take away from that. So part of the reason of going to Dubai was to go to the Gulf Food Expo, which was like one of the world's, if not the world's largest food expo and trade show around that. And we had the opportunity to kind of meet with some of our people that we're incredibly inspired by, like Massimo Bottura was there and some other incredible chefs, some of the greatest chefs and pastry chefs in the world were there. And, you know, we got a chance to pick their brain briefly, you know, and that was amazing. On top of that, it's just opening up our eyes to see if there's ever an opportunity, what it would look like to get, if we ever went anywhere, if we ever took it past the city, what
Right.
would that look like? And not that we necessarily are prepared to do that now, but people can dream, you know?
Right, of
So,
course. That was actually my
yeah.
next question was, do you foresee yourselves outside of Vancouver at any time, or do you want to keep it local?
Yeah, I would love to continue to cultivate locally. I think one thing is like people of this industry, some people love just that one-off shop and that's where they want to be and they're good there. For us. Just like, you know, we're taking on new challenges and expanding locations. I love the idea of as we keep getting informed on how to best do that, to scale operations in a way where we're taking on new concepts and new challenges. And I don't know if that necessarily means only being in the city, you know. So uh, I love the idea of you know, not trying to do too, because we want to challenge ourselves and keep doing new concepts and things. I want to do too many within the city, and then potentially it take away from what we actually have
Right.
here. But we would never grow without making sure that what we have here is not like the best version of what it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
So it's kind of that fine balance. We're looking all places potentially, but you know, that's a multi year, you
Yeah.
know, game
It's a long
plan.
way around. But you've done a lot in 3 years. I mean, most people would say
Yeah.
like, okay, we'll open a cafe. Maybe 2 years later, we'll open another one or so, and then we'll grow slowly. But I think once you've got that first one up and your second one up, now it looks like you're kind of on a roll, which is great to see because everybody, you know, people talk about you all the time. You don't know it because you're in the back scenes of things. You have no idea what people are saying, but I see it, and I see people talking about it all the time. And people,
Thanks.
when you find a place that you love to go to, you like to go back, right? Because it's about
Yeah.
experience. And I think all your staff have incredible experience where they're engaging from the get-go, right from that till all the way through. They're engaging, so
Wow.
that keeps the customer coming, and that's how
Thanks
you
for
do
that.
it. You can't have things go wrong, right? And I see things
Totally.
go wrong all the time, but you have to be careful about that. And I think with Polygon was an interesting one because you've got an art gallery,
Yeah.
and a lot of change in that area really fast. Like shipyards opening, a lot of things were going on, and you guys were coming in, and people. I kept hearing that. I heard that a lot of other cafes were coming to the neighborhood, and then they heard Nemesis was coming. They were a little worried, so it's sort of like you've got to like up your game. What it's up, it's about upping your game, right? So
Yeah.
it's kudos to you and your whole team. You've been able to do this right now, and of course, I'm sure COVID has been a huge pain for you, like everybody
Yeah.
else. But everyone
Yeah.
will get through it. We'll get through it soon, and then life
Definitely.
goes on. But it's great to see you've got so many projects in the works and a
Thanks,
lot for
Richard.
people to kind of watch and see. So thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Thank
And
you,
it's
man.
been a pleasure, and look forward to seeing what you
Absolutely.
have coming up down the pipeline.
Definitely. Look forward to feeding you and sharing a coffee with you very
Okay,
soon, man.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Bye.